It's Tuesday, December 13th, and there's nothing cryptic about this. We start here. 1 month after his cryptocurrency empire imploded, police arrest Sam Bankman-Fried.
You can imagine that these would be some really significant fraud charges given the size.
Why American prosecutors asked police in the Bahamas to deposit him here. A line of migrants stretches hundreds deep.
The crowds that we're seeing today, they could be even greater next week.
Why border agents are expecting more scenes like this in the days to come. And it's nuclear power without the nuclear waste.
This is like, sci-fi future kind of, the potential is amazing.
Scientists say they've made a quantum leap forward on clean energy. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey.
You said one of your great talents in a podcast was managing risk.
That's right. And
well, it's obviously wrong.
When ABC's George Stephanopoulos sat down with disgraced cryptocurrency investor Sam Bankman-Fried for his first TV network interview since his company went bankrupt, you could almost hear Sam Bankman-Fried's lawyers squirming.
I wasn't spending any time or effort trying to manage risk on FTX, and that obviously
that's
a
stunning
mistake.
Admission.
What?
That's a pretty stunning admission.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. What happened.
Here was someone whose company, FTX, was considered a pillar of really the entire crypto movement, whose customers could no longer recoup their deposits, telling George that he never really thought about risk management.
A lot of people got hurt, and that's on me.
It's on you. It's also potential crime, isn't it?
I don't believe that, the way that I see it, look, I screwed up.
We've been told that Good Morning America viewers were not the only ones watching this. Apparently, so was the Southern District of New York, which handles lots of financial crime cases. Lawyers there have been speaking to others around Sam Bankman-Fried, and last night we learned the man they call SBF was arrested in the Bahamas at the behest of American prosecutors. ABC's chief business and economics correspondent Rebecca Jarvis starts us off. Rebecca, things are moving quickly, man. I need you to catch me up. What is happening here?
Well, and some people would say they're moving quickly. Others might say they're moving slowly. There has been a giant outcry since November when this company filed, Sam Bankman-Fried's company, FTX, filed for bankruptcy after losing $10 billion in customer deposits. There's been this giant outcry of where are the regulators? So what's happening at this point is that there is a company called FTX, which has now filed for bankruptcy. That company was created by Sam Bankman-Fried. It was a large cryptocurrency trading exchange. That company was built on top of a hedge fund that Sam Bankman-Fried also created called Alameda Research.
Carolyn Ellison says you knew that FTX funds were being funneled to Alameda. Did you know that?
I knew that there is an open margin position there and that involved...
I know, but that's not what I'm asking.
The allegation is that FTX customer deposits were used to trade on Alameda. Now, that's a gigantic no-no. You can't run a hedge fund and say, we're running short. We don't have the money to cover these trades. So
Sorry, we used your money to prop up this other thing.
Exactly. Customer money.
She's in court and you're in court and she's under oath and you're under oath. And you're asked, did you know that these funds were being funneled to Alameda? What is your answer?
I did not know that there is any improper use of customer funds.
I mean, think about that. You would put your money into a bank and the bank doesn't actually have your money. Instead, they've traded it off and they don't have access to collateral that can cover it if you go to the bank and say, I want to withdraw my money now. So that happened back in early November. And Sam Bankman-Fried, you heard the interview there with George Stephanopoulos, but he's been on an interviewer tour. I mean, it feels like he's trying to sell a book. That's how much he's talking. So you've got this guy who's been talking incessantly. You've got regulators who are looking at this question, trying to figure out what's next. And now you have these charges, which are sealed, as you and I are talking right now, Brad. But you can imagine that these would be some really significant fraud charges, given the size.
Yeah, wait, Rebecca, just so I'm picturing this right, he's been living in the Bahamas. The company's technically based in the Bahamas. I think people were wondering, would he be arrested, in the Bahamas because of crimes he was going to be charged with there? Or was this just because like the U.S. was like, you need to arrest this guy and send him here? Is that what's happening right now?
Well, we know that the Southern District of New York is behind this and that they reached out to the Bahamian authorities and asked for this.
We just got word from the Prime Minister of the Bahamas that his nation, along with the United States, are committed to holding as many people accountable as possible for the collapse of the crypto exchange.
What comes next? It looks like the Bahamas also is interested in pursuing its own charges. And this has just been a piece of a larger unraveling inside of crypto. But I do want to put Sam Bankman-Fried's role in crypto into some perspective here. This was, until the whole unraveling, he was very much a poster child for safety in crypto, for transparency. He was on the Hill speaking to U.S. regulators, U.S. policymakers about the kinds of changes that would need to be made in order to safely regulate the industry.
And so, Mr. Bankman-Fried, I'm going to interrupt you because I've only got 30 seconds left. And I'm offended that you have a much more glorious afro than I once had.
He had the ear of many politicians. He also was a gigantic donor to politicians, one of the biggest donors to Democrats, but also a significant donor to Republicans as well. And so this is somebody who wielded a huge amount of power, yet at the same time on this talking tour he's been doing, also simultaneously wants you to believe that he just doesn't know how this could happen.
Without proper oversight, cryptocurrencies, it risks harming everyday Americans.
I've talked to a lot of the victims in this story, people who have lost money. And one of the most surprising things that I have heard over and over again is that it has not shaken their faith in crypto, that they don't see it as an issue with the underlying thing, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, for example. They see it as a bad actor. Now, I think one of the big questions here is, without some sort of guardrails, without some sort of justice for the people who have lost money, how do you trust the thing that lives inside of a system if you can't fully trust the system itself?
And even if crypto is small by comparison to the larger economy, Sam Bankman-Fried, that is the face that was supposed to take this even further, that was supposed to make this become a much bigger part of the economy. He's in custody now. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thanks, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, there are lines, and then there's what's happening in El Paso, what U.S. border officials are expecting after the break.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
After an extraordinary news-making year, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
This is where I belong. This is home. Real dirt in the sunlight again. I'm very excited. Anything could happen at any moment. My heart is so happy right now. We're making magic. We're making magic.
How often do these organs end up in American bodies? What are the secrets that most people don't know?
You should be very careful.
Let me see your ID card.
Wait.
This is a world you will have to live in. There's no going back.
It's the type of place where you can walk home by yourself late at night.
It really is the perfect college town.
Police are investigating the death of a freshman.
The victim had been stabbed 19 times.
I've never seen that much blood in any crime scene.
She was one of us.
She was everyone's best friend.
Could have been any of us.
I was just really scared.
While it's wonderful to think that you can leave your doors unlocked, don't.
Death in the Dorms, only on Hulu.
The world-famous Chippendale.
You would have never thought the Chippendales would be surrounded with murder.
The contrast between the fun, campy performance and behind the scenes, it's literally murderous.
Let me tell you the part you don't know.
Success can go murderously wrong.
It's really explosive.
2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Tonight, we're tracking the powerful storm coast to coast and the tornado threats. Plus, keeping an eye on COVID, RSV, and the flu as hospitals fill up with cases. More Americans turn to the #1 newscast on television. World News Tonight with David Muir.
For years, when we talked about migration at the southern border, it felt very constant. From a distance, you just imagine this consistent procession of people coming across. In recent years, though, that has changed. Now that so many people are traveling from Central and South America, you've got this concept of a caravan.
We are seeing an unprecedented movement of people from country to country.
For migrants, you can see the appeal. There's safety in numbers. For officials at the border, though, it is now possible to have weeks of relatively low traffic and then a day like this weekend when a group of 1,000 people showed up at one border checkpoint all at once. That is the scene in Ciudad Juarez right now, right across the border from El Paso. And experts say we could be seeing even more scenes like this one soon. Let's take you to the border. Matt Rivers is ABC's foreign correspondent. He's based in Mexico City. He's at the border right now. Matt, you've covered immigration for years. I mean, how abnormal is a sight like the one you're looking at right now?
Where we are right now, which I'm literally looking at the downtown skyline of the city of El Paso, what I'm seeing, which is hundreds of migrants beneath the border wall here, that is unusual to see. We've seen large groups of migrants end up at other parts of the border over the last few years, hundreds of people arriving at once. For example, people will remember in 2021, there were thousands of Haitian migrants that ended up in a place called Ciudad Acuña, which is right across the border from Del Rio, Texas. But to have this many migrants here on the border in downtown El Paso, essentially, is relatively unprecedented. I have come to this part of the border for years now, this exact spot on the border. Many people often cross here because the Rio Grande is quite low here, and I've never seen anything like this. When we arrived on Sunday evening, we saw hundreds of people who had just crossed all at once. This was a group of people that had gotten together over the last several weeks, months. We don't know exactly how all of these people managed to come together, but what we do know is that they arrived here in Ciudad Juarez on Sunday using buses. So mainly these groups of several hundreds of people arrived in Ciudad Juarez all at the same time, and they collectively made a decision, as is often what happens in a lot of these caravans, to cross all at once. And so basically, for the first time that I've seen at this particular border crossing, and again, it's not an official border crossing, we're just at the border, hundreds of people decided to cross the river at once. And what that did was effectively overwhelm very quickly the relatively limited migrant facilities, the Border Patrol, that Customs and Border Protection officials here, that they have. I mean, they can only process a certain amount of people at a time. And so you saw hundreds of people in line. They've been there for more than a day now. And Border Patrol agents are prioritizing women and children. They get processed first, single males then thereafter, and either going to be selectively released pending other immigration proceedings in the United States, or they will be taken to other Border Patrol facilities along other parts of the border, because simply put, the El Paso sector right now, where we are, is just overwhelmed by the number of migrants that are arriving.
There is this key deadline coming up in the immigration policy debate, right? Title 42 is this policy that was implemented during the pandemic that basically made it easier for us to boot migrants out of the country when they arrive. That's supposed to be going away soon. I'm wondering, is that changing what types of crowds we're going to see crossing the border?
It very well might. I mean, every single person, and when I say every single person, I mean every single person, has the same opinion that I've spoken to here on the Ciudad Juarez side of the border in Mexico. And they say that the amount of people that are going to be showing up because of this policy ending is going to grow, perhaps substantially.
Title 42 has nothing to do with immigration enforcement and everything to do with public health.
This was a policy that was put in place during the Trump administration. This is actually a health policy order. It's a directive that allows the United States, for public health reasons, to immediately expel people from the United States, migrants from the U.S. that otherwise would be granted asylum cases or at least asylum hearings. And that has been in place now going back to 2020. There's a possibility, depending on a couple court cases that are pending, that Title 42 policy will be ending as soon as next week. And this is something that migrants know about. So the migrants that we've seen cross already in just the last 36 hours, they're not waiting for that policy to end.
Yo tengo fe que sí pueda pasar.
She has faith that she'll be able to get in. Pero si no puedes entrar, ¿qué vas a hacer?
Ahora, de verdad, no sé.
She doesn't know what she'll do if they don't let her back in. I have personally spoken to a half dozen migrants on this side of the border, and they're representative of many other people who say they are waiting for Title 42 to end potentially next week.
Oh, like December 22nd, I'm going across.
Exactly. December 22nd, that's my day. Or maybe even on the 21st. Whenever that ruling comes down, they're leaving the shelter, they're going across, and they're going to apply for asylum in the United States. You're waiting because you want to cross in a more legal way. Estás esperando porque quieres cruzarte en una manera legal, ¿no?
Sí, quiero hacer las cosas bien. Porque
so the crowds that we're seeing today, they could be even greater next week. It's the border. We can't say anything for sure, but that is certainly a possibility and something that people on both sides of the border are planning for.
Right, and like you say, you have sort of one-off groups like this. That's not necessarily tied to Title 42, but it does give kind of this glimpse into the potential future in the weeks and months ahead here. All right, Matt Rivers there in Ciudad Juarez. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
In the wake of the oil spill in Kansas, the big question has resurfaced in environmental circles. What will it take to get not just clean energy, but abundant clean energy? Like, that's the whole reason these oil pipelines are still being proposed, is that there is more oil just sitting there waiting to be harnessed. But what if you had even more abundant energy, the way you do with nuclear power, without all those pesky side effects like radioactive waste? That would be like the holy grail of clean power. Well, we've learned that later today, scientists in California are expected to announce a big new step forward in the world of nuclear fusion. Let's talk about it with Michael Greshko. He's a science writer with our partners at National Geographic. And Michael, can you just kind of describe what this announcement is going to be later this morning? Like, why are scientists calling this such a big deal?
Sure. So later this morning, the U.S. Department of Energy is expected to announce that the National Ignition Facility, which is run out of the Lawrence Livermore National Lab in California, has achieved an important milestone in the pursuit of harnessing nuclear fusion for power.
We've got our work cut out for us, but I think this really signals that now's the time to move aggressively towards developing and deploying fusion energy.
What they're expected to announce is that this facility has achieved a first for fusion going back decades, which is a reaction where they got more energy out from nuclear fusion than they put in to heat up the fuel. We're not yet at a place to we can generate power off of this, but before you roast marshmallows at your campfire, you need to start the fire. And so what they've demonstrated here is this sort of first step toward ignition.
Yeah, and then the words you're using, like nuclear fusion, at the same time, it sounds incredibly huge, incredibly dramatic, and also incredibly wonky and maybe even boring to somebody who hasn't thought about it that much. Like, what is nuclear fusion? What do we have nuclear power right now, right?
Oh, we do. We are, unbeknownst to us, nuclear fusion is all around us. It is the power source of the stars. That's what we're talking about here. So every time you look up at the the sun in the sky, the stars in the cosmos. You are looking at nature's fusion reactors.
It's the fusing of light elements, hydrogen in the case of the announcement, to form helium, and it releases energy.
If you've ever played around with magnets, you know that maybe the north sides of two magnets don't stick to each other. They tend to repel. Atomic nuclei are the same thing. The nuclei of atoms are positively charged, and so they tend to repel each other. So to get them to fuse, you need to overcome that. And the way you do that is you need to get the nuclei moving really fast, which is to say you need to get them really hot.
More than 100 million degrees Celsius or 180 million degrees Fahrenheit.
You need to confine them at high pressures, and you need to have that system run for long enough where you up the odds of any two nuclei colliding with each other and fusing. And it is really hard to achieve all of those conditions all at the same time in a controlled way.
Offering the prospect of unlimited fusion power, a new dawn in the era of fusion energy.
The promise of harnessing fusion as an energy source is super tantalizing. There are no greenhouse gases if you're, generating power via fusion. Unlike nuclear fission, you don't have as many long-lived, radioactive waste products. So there's a lot of potential upside to nuclear fusion as an energy source.
Oh, so this would be like the game changer of having limitless energy that also happens to be clean energy.
Oh, yeah. This is sci-fi future kind of. The potential is amazing.
You're not going to get a, Mr. Fusion on your DeLorean anytime soon, but we're hopeful that this result and the research and development that's going to happen subsequently could lead to fusion on the grid, perhaps next decade.
Turns out it is really hard to replicate the interior of a star here on planet Earth.
How do you do that then?
Lasers. We're using lasers.
So this is the inside of a fusion reactor. The reaction takes place right here inside this donut-shaped vessel.
So we can't achieve the same densities and pressures that the sun can at its core. So one of the things that we can toggle is temperature. They take basically a hollow pellet, maybe the size of a peppercorn, filled with hydrogen gas, and then they put that at the center of a chamber that is surrounded with 192 incredibly powerful lasers. And so in that brief moment, you're getting the temperatures and pressures that you need to overcome this barrier and to achieve fusion.
Well, and so that if we look at other types of energy, solar, it's gotten literally cheaper to make solar energy. I guess the thing here now is trying to figure out, we know how to fuse these atoms together. We just don't know how to do it cheaply, either for money or for the amount of energy it takes. How do you get that down?
There's a number of startups that are trying to come up with commercially viable fusion reactors that could be used as power plants. There's a massive research project in France, a major international collaboration that uses a totally different architecture than the National Ignition Facility does. There's a lot of excitement around this. I think we should be excited about this milestone. We need to realize that this is the first milestone of many before we get to the neighborhood fusion power plant.
Right, and think about the amount of power to be harnessed and the amount of money to be made here. A huge step, really, if this is the future of energy. A huge announcement coming later today. Michael Greshko from Nat Geo. Thanks a lot.
Of course, thank you.
And one last thing. Los Angeles is home to some of this country's most spectacular police chases, but very few suspects live up to the celebrity status of this guy.
There's a mountain lion in downtown LA, right by the Hollywood sign and right above the Hollywood Hills.
P22 is the name of a mountain lion that roams the hills of Los Angeles. And last night, after a days-long search, he was caught and taken into custody. There are actually more than 100 mountain lions that live in and around LA. Many of them live in the Santa Monica mountain range, but that range encompasses a ton of houses, even spans freeways, meaning it's not unusual at all for these big cats to cross roads, climb telephone poles, and traverse backyards.
The majority of his time was really spent movement in the wilder areas of Griffith Park, and he would move into the neighborhoods more occasionally.
Which is admirable in a way, even though it can be unnerving to think a mountain lion has eyes on your hike. A lot of residents say, these guys were here before us. If they're able to make a life here, more power to them.
I've never seen him. It's kind of been a friendly neighbor to us, I would say.
Which brings us to the cat who was given the number P22. He used to live in those Santa Monica mountains, but as he grew, like so many Angelino transplants, decided to make it on his own. Somehow, he traveled more than 20 miles across 2 8-lane highways and settled down in Griffith Park, where he became a star.
And my name is P22. Hey, I woke up this morning and I just started roaming.
This is a guy who wrote a song for the cat they call the Brad Pitt of mountain lions.
Across streets and across mountains, I'll go up, down, and I'll go down them.
But recently, something changed. P22 began attacking dogs on leashes, which is unusual for mountain lions. Authorities decided he needed to be evaluated for signs of distress. The only problem was finding him. Despite living on just 7 square miles of land, he is very rarely spotted. Years ago, he was outfitted with a tracking collar, but limited battery life meant he could only be pinged twice a day. Last night, though, he was found, tranquilized, and taken to a vet. It's unclear whether he will be returned to Griffith Park, but in a town full of stars, he has remained perhaps the most elusive. The great thing about P22 is he's actually spurred support for real-world change, the idea of building these wildlife overpasses over freeways there, because there are a ton of wild spaces in this area of Southern California, but they've really been carved up by roads. So just by adapting so well, P22 has become like the mascot, the reason for this project. More on all these stories at abcnews.com or the ABC News app. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
This is where I belong. This is home. Real dirt in the sunlight again. I'm very excited. Anything could happen at any moment. My heart is so happy right now. We're making magic. We're making magic.